The morning Seren packed her bag, I was rewiring the kitchen outlets. Funny how life gives you metaphors when you least expect them. There I was, elbow deep in electrical work, when my wife of 8 years decided to announce her little vacation. "I'm leaving for a week to visit Amanda," she said, zipping up her small travel bag with the kind of efficiency that comes from practice. Too much practice, if you ask me. I looked up from the junction box, wire strippers in hand. Seren stood there in her designer jeans and that blue sweater that cost more than my monthly truck payment. Everything about her screamed expensive these days, from her highlighted hair to her manicured nails. When did she start caring so much about looking perfect for a simple friend visit? "Amanda Peterson?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Your college roommate Amanda?" "Yes, Lennon. Amanda Peterson. She lives in Chicago now, remember? We've been planning this for months." "The thing is, I'm an electrical engineer. I've spent 15 years troubleshooting circuits, finding breaks in the line, tracking down problems that hide in the walls. You develop an instinct for when something doesn't add up. And right now, standing in my kitchen with my wife's travel announcement, every alarm in my head was going off like a tripped breaker." "Months, huh?" I set down my tools and wiped my hands on a rag. "That's funny, because when I talked to Amanda last week about borrowing her husband's truck for the Henderson job, she mentioned how busy they've been with their new baby. Didn't sound like someone expecting a house guest." Serene's face went through a series of micro-expressions. Surprise, then calculation, then that practiced smile she'd perfected over the years. "Well, maybe she forgot to mention it. You know how scattered new moms can be." I nodded slowly. "Sure, scattered. That makes sense." But it didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. The bag was too small for a week-long trip. She'd been working late more often, coming home with stories about projects that didn't quite line up with what I knew about her job in HR. And then there were the phone calls that stopped abruptly when I walked into the room. "I've already told Amanda that you're going to her husband," I said casually, turning back to the electrical box. The silence behind me stretched like a live wire. When I glanced over my shoulder, Seren had gone pale. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean, I forwarded your itinerary email to Tom Peterson. You know, Amanda's husband, the one with the truck. Figured he'd want to know about the visit too, maybe plan something special for you girls." I watched her reflection in the chrome outlet cover as I spoke. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She was calculating again, trying to figure out what I knew and what I was guessing. "Lennon, that's..." She started, then stopped. "That's fine. Of course. I just thought Amanda would want to tell him herself." "Oh, I'm sure she did, but you know how men are. Sometimes we need the details spelled out for us." I turned around and pulled out my phone. "Speaking of details, I also sent him the hotel booking confirmation. The Marriott downtown, right? Room 1247? Seemed like a nice place for a girls' trip." The color drained completely from her face now. How did I get your booking confirmation?" "Seren, we share an email account for travel notifications, have for years. Amazing what you can learn when you actually pay attention to the details." She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers gripping the handle of her bag. I could practically see the wheels turning, trying to figure out how much trouble she was in. "I should go," she said finally. "Don't want to miss my flight." "Absolutely, but before you do?" I pulled up another screen on my phone. I also sent Tom those interesting call logs from our phone bill. You know, the ones showing all those late-night conversations with numbers I didn't recognize, and the location data from your phone that puts you at some pretty interesting places during your overtime hours. Her bag slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. "Oh, and that photo you sent to Amanda last week? The one with the spare hotel key? You might want to work on your cropping skills. The reflection in the key card shows a man's hand. Distinctive watch, too. Looks expensive." Serene opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in months, she was speechless. My phone buzzed. Text message from Amanda Peterson. "Lennon, what the hell is going on? Seren's supposed to be visiting me? I haven't talked to her in 6 months. Call me now." I held up the phone so Seren could see the screen. "Looks like Amanda has some questions." The phone rang, Amanda's name on the caller ID. I answered on speaker. "Lennon, what's this about Seren visiting me, and what's this hotel booking you sent? I'm so confused right now." "Hey, Amanda, maybe you should ask Seren. She's standing right here." Silence on the other end, then, "Seren? Are you there?" My wife stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Amanda," she finally managed, "I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been lying about visiting me? That you've booked a hotel room in Chicago and told your husband you were staying at my house? What the hell, Seren? It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're using me as cover for something, and I don't appreciate being dragged into whatever this is. I leaned against the kitchen counter, watching my wife squirm. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her at a loss for words. It was almost educational. Amanda, I need you to listen, Seren said, her voice taking on that manipulative tone she used when she wanted something. This is just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Seren? Your husband just sent me hotel reservations, call logs, and some photo with a key card. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is you lying to everyone. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from an unknown number. Is this Seren's husband? This is Julie Martinez from her office. We need to talk. I showed the screen to Seren. Her face went from pale to green. Looks like your coworkers have questions too, I said. Amanda was still talking on speaker. Seren, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Whatever you're doing, whatever this is about, you leave my name out of it. You don't use me as an alibi, you don't tell people you're visiting me, and you sure as hell don't involve my family in your lies. Amanda, please. No, I'm done. Lennon, I'm sorry you're dealing with this, but I want nothing to do with whatever scheme this is. The line went quiet. Amanda had hung up. Seren stared at the phone, then at me. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Explain the hotel room. Explain the lies. Explain why you're using our friends as cover for whatever you're really doing. She picked up her bag again, her hands shaking slightly. I can't. Not right now. Can't or won't. I have to go. To Chicago? To visit Amanda? Because I'm pretty sure that invitation just got rescinded. She headed for the door, then stopped. This isn't over, Lennon. No, I agreed. It's not. After she left, I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by exposed wiring and half-finished electrical work. The house felt different somehow, like the atmosphere had changed when the truth started coming out. My phone buzzed again. Julie Martinez from Seren's office. Can you call me? It's about the company travel credits. Company travel credits. Of course. She'd used work money for her little adventure. I looked at the electrical box in front of me, all those colorful wires running in different directions, each one carrying current to where it needed to go. When a circuit gets overloaded, when too much power tries to run through lines that can't handle it, the breaker trips. It's a safety mechanism. It shuts everything down before the system can be damaged beyond repair. Standing there in my kitchen, I realized my marriage had just hit its breaker point. I picked up my phone and started making calls. Julie Martinez turned out to be more than just a coworker. She was Seren's supervisor in the HR department, and she had questions that made my stomach twist into knots. Your wife submitted a travel authorization request 3 weeks ago, Julie explained when I called her back. Conference in Chicago, professional development, the whole package. Company pays for hotel, meals, transportation. But here's the thing, Lennon. There is no conference. I was still standing in my kitchen, staring at the mess of wires I'd been working on. Seemed fitting somehow. What do you mean? I mean, I called the hotel to confirm the corporate rate, and they told me the reservation was made for 2 people. 2 adults, 1 room. That's not standard for business travel. My hands tightened around the phone. 2 people. Gets worse. I did some digging after your wife left this morning. The credit card charges from the past 2 months, they don't match up with any business activities. Restaurants in parts of town where we don't have clients. Gas stations near residential areas that have nothing to do with work. And here's the kicker. She's been claiming overtime for hours when the building security logs show she left at normal time. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger exactly, but something harder, more focused. How much are we talking about? In fraudulent charges? Maybe $3,000? In overtime fraud? Another $2,000. It's not huge money, but it's enough to get her terminated and potentially prosecuted. What do you need from me? Honestly, nothing. I've got enough to start disciplinary proceedings, but I thought you should know what's coming. After I hung up, I walked through the house Seren and I had bought together 5 years ago. Everything looked the same, but felt different. The expensive throw pillows she'd insisted on. The artwork that cost more than my monthly salary. The kitchen renovation we'd fought about because she wanted marble countertops we couldn't afford. How much of this had been paid for with lies? My phone rang again. This time it was Travis, my business partner and the closest thing I had to a brother. Heard Seren took off for Chicago, he said without preamble. Travis owned the other half of Braskin Electric, the company our grandfather had started 60 years ago. He was also the only person who could read my moods better than I could. News travels fast. Amanda Peterson called my wife. Apparently, she's pretty steamed about being used as cover for whatever Seren's up to. Want to talk about it? Not much to talk about yet. Still figuring out how deep this goes. Deep enough that you're using that voice. What voice? The voice you use when you're about to do something that's either brilliant or catastrophically stupid. Sometimes both. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. Travis was right. I could hear it in my own voice. A flatness that meant I'd moved past hurt and into planning mode. Travis, you remember when we rewired the Henderson house? How we had to trace every circuit, figure out where all the problems were hiding? Yeah. Took us 3 weeks to find all the shortcuts the previous owner had made. Why? I think my marriage has the same problem. Shortcuts, hidden connections, things that look fine on the surface but are actually dangerous underneath. Lennon, what are you planning? Just some troubleshooting. Making sure I understand the full scope of the problem before I decide how to fix it. And if the problem can't be fixed? I thought about that for a moment, watching my reflection in the window. Then I guess I'll have to replace the whole system. After Travis hung up, I spent the next 2 hours going through everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records, emails. I approached it like an electrical diagnosis. Systematic, thorough, following every wire to its source. What I found was worse than I'd expected. The affair had been going on for at least 4 months, maybe longer. The man's name was David Chen, and he worked at Meridian Tech, the software company where Seren had been doing some consulting work. Married, 2 kids, drove a black BMW that had been parked in our driveway twice when I was supposed to be out of town. The restaurant charges Julie had mentioned? They painted a clear picture. Expensive dinners, always for 2, always on nights when Seren claimed to be working late. The gas station charges were near David's house in the suburbs. The overtime fraud was covering the time she spent with him, but it was the emails that really got to me. I found them in a folder she thought she'd hidden, buried deep in her personal account. Messages that made it clear this wasn't just physical. She was planning to leave me. Had been for weeks. David makes me feel alive again, she'd written to her sister. Like I matter. Like I'm not just some electrical contractor's wife stuck in a house that smells like wire nuts and sawdust. That one stung more than I wanted to admit. Another message, this one to David. Lennon won't fight the divorce. He's too passive. We can be together by Christmas. Too passive. That's what she thought of me. 8 years of marriage, and she saw me as someone who wouldn't fight for what mattered to him. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. I gathered everything into a folder on my laptop. Screenshots, bank records, phone logs, emails, photos. Then I made copies on 3 different drives and stored them in 3 different locations. If there's one thing electrical work teaches you, it's the importance of backup systems. My phone buzzed with a text from Seren. Landed in Chicago. Don't wait up. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, Say hi to David for me. 3 dots appeared immediately, showing she was typing. Then they disappeared, then appeared again, then disappeared. The pause stretched, each flicker of activity on the screen feeling more deliberate than the last, like she was testing responses and discarding them, trying to find the right combination of denial and control. Finally, my phone rang. What's that supposed to mean? She demanded. Her voice was sharp, defensive, already halfway to anger. Just being friendly. David Chen, right? From Meridian Tech? Married guy with the BMW? I'm sure you two will have a lovely time at the Marriott. I leaned back against the counter as I spoke, keeping my tone light, almost conversational, letting the details do the work. Silence on the other end. Long enough that I wondered if she'd hung up. I could almost hear her recalculating, running through what I knew and how I could possibly know it. Lennon. Her voice came back quieter, stripped of its edge. Here's what's going to happen, Seren. You're going to come home tomorrow, you're going to pack your things, and you're going to move out. I didn't rush the words or soften them. They were instructions, not threats. You can't just... I can, and I am. I've already talked to Julie Martinez about the company credit card fraud. I've talked to Amanda about you using her as a fake alibi. And I've got enough evidence of your affair to make the divorce very simple and very one-sided. I stared at the wall as I spoke, grounding myself in the solidity of the house. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your email. I ended the call before she could respond, the click final and clean. I hung up and sent her a sample of what I'd found. Just enough to let her know I wasn't guessing. Screenshots, timestamps, transactions, context without commentary. My phone started ringing immediately. I let it go to voicemail, then again and again. Each vibration felt less urgent than the last. Then I called a locksmith. If Seren thought I was too passive to fight, she was about to get an education in exactly how much voltage I could generate when properly motivated. The locksmith arrived 2 hours later, a grizzled guy named Pete who'd done work for Braskin Electric before. His truck idled at the curb, headlights washing the front of the house in pale light. He took one look at my face and didn't ask any questions. "All the locks?" he asked, already unloading his tools. "All the locks, and I want them done tonight." "You got it, Lennon. Sorry about whatever's happening here." He didn't pry, just nodded once and got to work, the sound of metal and tools echoing through the quiet house. While Pete worked, I boxed up Seren's clothes and personal items. Not angrily, not vindictively, just efficiently. Drawers emptied, closets cleared, everything folded or wrapped with care, like I was clearing out old electrical components that were no longer needed. By midnight, the house was secure and Serene's belongings were neatly packed and waiting on the front porch. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 unread text messages. I turned it off and went to bed. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. I woke up at 5:30 to the sound of someone trying to get into the house. The key turned in the lock, but the deadbolt held firm. Then came the pounding. "Lennon, open this door right now." I lay in bed for a moment, listening to Seren's voice escalate from demanding to desperate. She'd caught a red-eye flight home, apparently, probably spent the entire trip trying to figure out how to control the damage. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." The pounding got louder. I could hear neighbors' porch lights coming on. Good. Let them see what kind of person she really was. I got up, put on my robe, and walked downstairs. Through the front window, I could see her standing on the porch in the same clothes she'd worn yesterday, her hair a mess, her makeup smudged. The boxes of her belongings sat where I'd left them. "Seren," I called through the door. "It's 5:30 in the morning. You're disturbing the neighbors." "I don't care about the neighbors. Let me in." "This isn't your house anymore." "Like hell it isn't. My name is on the deed, and my name is on the mortgage." Funny how that works. I could hear her breathing hard on the other side of the door. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Softer, more manipulative. "Lennon, please, can we just talk? Like adults? I know you're upset, but we can work this out. Are you still sleeping with David Chen?" Silence. "That's what I thought. Nothing to work out, Seren. You made your choice." "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. I've seen the emails, the restaurant receipts, the hotel bookings. I know about the company credit card fraud. I know about the overtime scam. I know you've been planning to leave me for months." More silence. Then, where did you get... "I'm an electrical engineer, remember? I'm good at tracing problems to their source." My phone started buzzing. Text messages from David Chen's number. "We need to talk. This is getting out of hand." I screenshot the message and sent it to Seren's phone. "Looks like your boyfriend wants to chat." I called through the door. The pounding started again, more frantic this time. "Lennon, please. I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining things. Very creative with the truth." A car pulled up in front of the house. David Chen's black BMW. The man himself got out, looking like he'd slept in his clothes. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of soft handsomeness that comes from never having done real work with his hands. "Seren," he called out. "What are you doing?" She spun around. "David, what are you doing here?" "Damage control. My wife knows. She found the hotel charges on our credit card." I opened the front door just wide enough to stick my head out. "Morning, David. How's the family?" He looked up at me with the expression of a man who just realized he was in much deeper trouble than he'd thought. "You must be the husband," he said. "Lennon Braskin. And you must be the guy who's been using my wife's company credit card to pay for your little adventures. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait." I stepped out onto the porch, still in my robe and slippers. "You want to explain to me how a married man with 2 kids justifies destroying 2 families for what? A few months of excitement?" David looked at Seren, then back at me. "Look, this is complicated." "Actually, it's pretty simple. You're both liars. You're both cheaters. And now you're both dealing with the consequences." Seren had been quiet during this exchange, but now she found her voice. "Lennon, you're embarrassing yourself, acting like some jealous husband." "Jealous?" I laughed, and even I was surprised by how cold it sounded. "Seren, I'm not jealous. I'm relieved. You've just shown me exactly who you really are." More neighbors were coming out now. Mrs. Peterson from next door, the Johnsons from across the street. A few people I didn't recognize, probably drawn by the commotion. "You want to do this in public?" I asked. "Fine. Let's do it in public. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of evidence I'd compiled. David, does your wife know you've been using company resources to conduct your affair? Because I've got restaurant receipts, hotel bookings, and gas station charges that paint a pretty clear picture. His face went pale. You can't. I can and I will. Seren, does your sister know you've been planning to divorce me since August? Because I've got the emails where you discuss it in detail. Lennon, stop, she pleaded. Why should I stop? You didn't stop when you were lying to me every day for months. You didn't stop when you were stealing from your company. You didn't stop when you were using our friends as cover for your affair. David was backing toward his car. This is insane. I'm leaving. Good idea, I called after him. But David, I've already sent copies of everything to your wife, and to your HR department, and to Seren's family, so leaving won't actually solve your problem. He froze with his hand on the car door handle. The metal was still warm from the sun. His fingers curled awkwardly around it as if he weren't quite sure whether to pull or let go, his shoulders stiffening the way people do when they realize they've misjudged a situation. That's right, I continued. While you two were playing house in Chicago, I was doing my homework. Turns out there are a lot of people who deserve to know the truth about what you've been up to. My voice sounded steadier than I felt, each word placed carefully, deliberately, like setting charges in the open. Seren grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, nails pressing through the fabric of my sleeve. You sent evidence to my family? Her eyes were wide, disbelief and panic colliding in her expression. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. Your sister, your parents, your cousin Jennifer, who helped us with the wedding planning. I figured they should know why their daughter and niece was suddenly getting divorced. I gently but firmly pulled my arm free, needing the space. You had no right. Her voice cracked, the words unraveling before she could finish them. I had every right. You want to blow up our marriage? Fine, but you don't get to control the narrative. You don't get to make me the bad guy in your story. I could feel the adrenaline humming under my skin now, sharp and clarifying. My phone started ringing. Serene's mother. The screen lit up insistently, vibrating in my hand. Want to take that call? I asked Serene. I'm sure your mom has questions. I held the phone just far enough away that she could see the name. She stared at the phone like it was a snake, something dangerous and unpredictable. I don't know what to say to her. Her shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of her posture. Try the truth? It's a novel concept for you, but you might find it liberating. I slipped the phone back into my pocket as it went to voicemail. David had gotten back in his car, but he wasn't leaving. He was on his phone, probably dealing with his own family crisis. Through his windshield, I could see him gesturing frantically, one hand chopping the air, his jaw tight, the confident ease he'd worn earlier completely gone. Loch. Lennon, Seren said, her voice small now, barely carrying over the hum of passing traffic. Can we please go inside, talk about this privately? She took a half step toward me, tentative. Why? So you can try to manipulate me some more? So you can promise to change and beg for another chance? I didn't raise my voice, but there was no softness left in it. So we can figure out how to end this without destroying everything. She sounded exhausted, like someone who'd finally realized the ground wasn't going to stop shifting. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd married 8 years ago. The woman I'd bought a house with, made plans with, shared dreams with. The familiar lines of her face were still there, but something essential was missing. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, like a version of herself stripped of certainty and illusion. Serene, you destroyed everything the moment you decided David Chen was more important than our marriage. I'm just making sure everyone knows who's responsible. There was no anger left in me now, just resolve. Her phone started ringing, then David's, then mine again, overlapping vibrations and chimes filling the air, impossible to ignore. Looks like the truth is spreading, I said. Funny how fast that happens once you stop trying to contain it. A police car turned onto our street, moving slowly. Someone had probably called about the disturbance. You should go, I told Seren. Take your things and go. Stay with David, stay with your sister, stay in a hotel. I don't care. But you're not coming back into this house. This is my home, too. No, I said firmly. This was our home. You gave that up when you decided to share a hotel room with someone else. The police car pulled up behind David's BMW. Officer Martinez got out. No relation to Joulaire from Serene's work. Just an unfortunate coincidence in names. He was a good guy, someone I'd done electrical work for a few years back. Morning, folks. We got a call about a disturbance? No disturbance, officer, I said. Just my wife picking up her belongings after our separation. Officer Martinez looked at the boxes on the porch, then at Seren's tear-streaked face, then at David sitting in his car looking like he wanted to disappear. "Ma'am, do you have somewhere else to stay?" he asked Seren. She nodded miserably. "I can stay with my sister." "And these are your belongings?" He gestured to the boxes. "Yes." "Then I suggest you take them and go." "Sir?" He turned to me. "I trust there won't be any more disturbances?" "Not from my end, officer. I just want to be left alone." After the police car left, after David drove away, after Seren loaded her boxes into her car and disappeared down the street, I stood on my front porch in my robe and slippers, watching the sun come up over the neighborhood. Mrs. Peterson approached from next door, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Rough morning," she said, offering me one of the cups. "Getting better by the minute," I replied, and for the first time in months, I meant it. The next 3 days passed in a blur of phone calls, legal consultations, and what felt like the entire town of Millbrook suddenly taking an interest in my personal life. Word travels fast in a community of 12,000 people, especially when it involves credit card fraud and public domestic disputes. Julie Martinez called Tuesday morning with an update that made my coffee taste better. "Serene's been terminated," she said without preamble. "Effective immediately. The company credit card fraud was bad enough, but when we dug deeper, we found she'd been falsifying timesheets for months." "How much trouble is she in?" "Legally, that's up to the company lawyers. But her career in HR is finished. Word gets around in this industry." I was rewiring the outlets in my home office when she called, and there was something satisfying about stripping old wires while listening to the consequences of Seren's choices catch up with her. "There's something else," Julie continued. "David Chen's company called yesterday. Apparently he's been using company resources for personal business too. Company car, company credit card, even company time. He's been put on administrative leave pending investigation." "Sounds like they deserve each other." "Yeah, well, they might get the chance to find out. His wife filed for divorce yesterday, took the kids and moved in with her parents." After Julie hung up, I sat in my office surrounded by electrical components and legal paperwork, trying to process how quickly everything had unraveled. A week ago, I'd been a married man with what I thought was a stable life. Now I was single, my wife was unemployed and facing potential criminal charges, and her boyfriend was in the same boat. Travis showed up around noon with sandwiches and beer. "Figured you might need some company," he said, settling into the kitchen chair across from me. "Also figured you might not be eating much." He was right on both counts. I'd been running on coffee and anger for 3 days. "How's the neighborhood gossip mill treating you?" he asked. "Could be worse. Most people seem to be on my side. Turns out Seren wasn't as popular as she thought she was." Mrs. Patterson told my wife the whole story. Apparently Seren made some enemies at the last homeowners association meeting. Something about complaining that the neighborhood wasn't upscale enough for her tastes. I shook my head. She always did have a talent for making friends. "Speaking of friends, you might want to prepare yourself. Amanda Peterson's planning to call you later." "What for?" "To apologize, and to tell you what she really thinks about your soon-to-be ex-wife." Travis was right. Amanda called that evening, and she was furious. "I've been thinking about this for days," she said. "The more I think about it, the angrier I get. She was going to let me take the blame when her lies fell apart. If you hadn't figured it out and confronted her, I would have been stuck explaining to my husband why some woman was using me as cover for her affair. I'm sorry you got dragged into this." "Don't apologize. I'm glad you told me. But Lennon, there's something else you should know. This isn't the first time." My hand tightened on the phone. "What do you mean?" "I mean Seren has a history of this. Back in college, she had an affair with a married professor, destroyed his marriage, got him fired, then moved on like nothing happened. I always wondered if she'd grown out of that behavior. Guess we have our answer. I'm sorry, Lennon. I should have warned you years ago, but I hoped she'd changed." After Amanda hung up, I poured myself a drink and sat on the back deck, staring out at the yard Seren and I had landscaped together 3 summers earlier. She'd pushed for costly plants that needed constant care, and now half of them were already withering from neglect. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is David. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "No, we don't. Please, this has gotten out of hand. We need to figure out how to fix this." "Nothing to fix. You made your choices." "My kids are asking where Daddy went. My wife won't let me see them. I've lost my job. This has to stop." I read his message twice, feeling something that might have been sympathy if I'd been a better person, but mostly what I felt was a cold satisfaction. "Should have thought about your kids before you started the affair," I typed back. You're destroying innocent people. No, David, you destroyed innocent people. I'm just making sure everyone knows who's responsible. He didn't text back. Thursday morning brought a call from Seren's sister, Jennifer. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Lennon? It's Jen. I know this is awkward, but I wanted to apologize. For what? For my sister. For not seeing what she was becoming. For not warning you. I was replacing a faulty circuit breaker in the basement when she called, and the symbolism wasn't lost on me. Old system out, new system in. You couldn't have known, I said. Actually, I could have. She's been complaining about you for months. About the house, about your job, about how she felt trapped in a blue-collar life. I should have realized she was working up to something like this. What kind of complaints? Nothing specific, just she felt like she deserved better, like she'd married beneath herself. It was ugly, Lennon. I'm ashamed I didn't shut her down. I tested the new breaker, watching the lights come on throughout the basement. Clean power, flowing where it was supposed to go. The faint hum in the walls settled into a steady, reassuring rhythm, the kind you only notice when something has finally been fixed properly. I flipped a few switches on and off, methodical, confirming what I already knew, letting the simple logic of circuits and current occupy my hands while the phone rested against my shoulder. She's staying with you now? For a few days, until she figures out what to do next. Jennifer's voice sounded tired but firm, the way it always did when she'd already made up her mind. But I want you to know, she's not welcome here long term. What she did to you, what she did to David's family, it's inexcusable. I leaned back against a support beam, the cool concrete seeping through my shirt. I appreciate that. There's something else. She hesitated. The pause waited. She wants to try to work things out with you. She's convinced she can fix this. I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended, sharp enough to surprise even me. Fix it how? By telling you it was all a mistake, that David manipulated her, that she wants to come home and start over. And what did you tell her? I told her she's delusional. You don't come back from this kind of betrayal. Some things can't be fixed. There was no anger in her voice, just certainty. After Jennifer hung up, I finished the electrical work and cleaned up the basement. I coiled extension cords, wiped dust from the breaker panel, and stacked my tools neatly in their case. Everything was functioning properly now. Clean circuits, proper grounding, no dangerous shortcuts hidden in the walls. The order of it felt deliberate, earned. My phone rang again. This time it was Seren. Lennon, please don't hang up. I almost did, thumb hovering over the screen, but something in her voice stopped me. She sounded broken in a way I'd never heard before, stripped of excuses and rehearsed confidence. I'm listening. I know you hate me right now, and I don't blame you, but I need you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. Her words tumbled out quickly, fragile. How far did you mean for it to go? I don't know. I was confused, unhappy, looking for something that was missing in my life. And you found it with David. I thought I did, but it was all fantasy, Lennon. None of it was real. She sounded smaller with every sentence, like she was shrinking inside the truth. I walked upstairs to the kitchen, the floorboards creaking softly under my feet, and looked out the window at the street where we'd lived together for 5 years. The same houses, the same parked cars, the same quiet familiarity. It was real enough to destroy 2 marriages. I know I messed up everything, but maybe we can... Stop right there, I interrupted, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. Don't say we can work it out. Don't say it was a mistake. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this was some momentary lapse in judgment. But you planned this, Seren, for months. You stole money, you lied to everyone who cared about you, and you were ready to walk away from our marriage without a second thought. The only thing you regret is getting caught. The words felt heavy but clean as they left my mouth. Silence on the other end of the line stretched long and hollow. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, I continued. On grounds of adultery, with documentation. It'll be quick and one-sided. Lennon, please. Goodbye, Seren. I hung up and turned off my phone, setting it face down on the counter like it no longer mattered. Outside, the sun was setting over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The light caught on windows and rooftops, lingering just long enough to be noticed. It was beautiful in a way I hadn't noticed in months. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I could breathe. The divorce papers were filed on Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, the whole town knew about it. Small communities have their drawbacks, but they also have their advantages. When someone wrongs you, everyone knows about it. When you're the victim, people rally around you. I was at Braskin Electric working on estimates for the new shopping center project when my lawyer called with an update. Serene's attorney wants to meet, Robert Kessler said. He was a good lawyer, someone who'd handled business contracts for us before. They're hoping to negotiate a settlement. What kind of settlement? The usual. She wants half the house value, half your business assets, spousal support while she looks for new employment. I set down my calculator and leaned back in my office chair. Through the window, I could see Travis working on one of our service trucks, replacing worn components with new ones. What did you tell them? That we'd consider any reasonable offer, but given the circumstances of the marriage dissolution, their definition of reasonable might need adjustment. Meaning? Meaning adultery is still grounds for fault-based divorce in this state. Combined with the financial fraud, she's not in a strong negotiating position. Good. What do you need from me? Just keep documenting everything. And Lennon? Don't do anything stupid. I know you're angry, but don't give them ammunition to use against you. After Robert hung up, I went back to my estimates, but my mind kept wandering. 3 weeks ago, I'd been married to a woman who was planning to leave me. Now I was planning a future without her. It was like rewiring a house. Sometimes you had to tear out the old system completely before you could install something better. Travis knocked on my office door around 3 o'clock. Got a minute? There's someone here to see you. David Chen was standing in our parking lot next to his black BMW, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. He was wearing a wrinkled suit and needed a shave. When he saw me come out of the building, he straightened up like he was preparing for a confrontation. Lennon, thanks for agreeing to see me. I didn't agree to anything. Travis said someone wanted to talk. I figured it was a customer. Can we talk privately? I looked around the parking lot. 2 of our electricians were loading supplies into a van, and Mrs. Rodriguez from the office supply store next door was watching from her window. Privacy was relative in this part of town. You've got 5 minutes, I said. I want to apologize. Okay, you've apologized. Anything else? He looked surprised, like he'd expected more resistance. I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt a lot of people. But this vendetta you're on, it's destroying innocent people. Such as? My kids. They don't understand why Daddy can't come home. My wife is talking about moving back to California, taking them away from everything they know. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. David, I didn't make you have an affair. I didn't make you use company resources for personal business. I didn't make you lie to your family for months. But you're the one who exposed everything. You could have handled this privately. Like you and Seren handled your relationship privately? He had the grace to look ashamed. That's different. No, it's not. You both made choices. Now you're dealing with the consequences. What do you want from me? What will it take to make this stop? I studied his face for a moment. He looked genuinely desperate, and part of me almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I want you to leave me alone, I said finally. I want you to stay away from my wife, and I want you to stop pretending you're the victim here. Serene's not your wife anymore. She is until the divorce is final. And even then, I don't want to hear about you two riding off into the sunset together. You want to rebuild your life? Do it somewhere else. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. But Lennon, for what it's worth, she really does regret what happened. I'm sure she regrets getting caught. No, I mean she regrets hurting you. She talks about you constantly, about the life you had together, about what she threw away. I looked at him for a long moment. David, let me explain something to you. When an electrical system fails, it's usually because someone took shortcuts. They used the wrong wire, or they overloaded a circuit, or they ignored safety protocols. And once that happens, once the system is compromised, you can't just patch it up and hope for the best. You have to replace it completely. I don't understand. My marriage failed because my wife took shortcuts. She lied, she cheated, she stole money, and she planned to abandon our life together without giving me a chance to fix whatever was wrong. That system is compromised beyond repair. But people can change? Maybe they can, but I'm not willing to bet my future on maybe. David nodded again, looking defeated. I'm sorry, Lennon, for all of it. I know you are, but sorry doesn't rebuild what you tore down. After he left, I went back inside and tried to focus on work, but my conversation with David had stirred up thoughts I'd been trying to avoid. Despite everything, despite the lies and betrayal and public humiliation, there was a small part of me that missed being married. Not to Seren specifically, but to the idea of partnership, of shared goals and mutual support. But that was the old system talking. The compromised wiring that needed to be replaced. Travis found me in the office an hour later, staring at blueprints without really seeing them. "Want to talk about it?" he asked. David Chen stopped by to apologize. That's something, I guess. He also wanted me to know that Seren regrets what happened. Travis sat down across from my desk. "Do you care?" I thought I might. But no, I don't think I do. Good, because regret is just another word for getting caught. That's what I told him. Smart man. So what's next? I looked at the blueprints spread across my desk. Plans for rewiring the entire electrical system in the new shopping center. Clean lines, proper circuits, everything built to code and designed to last. Next, I build something better, I said. The shopping center project? Everything. Travis smiled. Now you're talking. That evening, I drove through downtown Millbrook, past the restaurants where Seren and David had conducted their affair, past the office building where she'd worked before getting fired, past the hotel where they'd planned to spend their fraudulent weekend getaway. None of it hurt anymore. It was just geography now. Places where other people had made bad decisions that led to predictable consequences. I ended up at Murphy's Tavern, a blue-collar bar where the electricians and contractors hung out after work, the kind of place Seren had always said was beneath her standards. "Heard you're a free man," said Mickey Murphy, sliding a beer across the bar. "How's it feel?" "Like getting a clean bill of health after a long illness." "That good, huh?" "Better." I sat there for an hour, nursing my beer and listening to the conversations around me. People talking about work, about family, about plans for the weekend. Normal people living normal lives without drama or deception. It felt like coming home. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Lennon, this is Jennifer. Seren wanted me to ask if you'd be willing to meet with her. She has something she wants to say." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back. "Tell her to put it in writing. I'm done with face-to-face conversations." "She says it's important." "Then it'll be important in writing too." I finished my beer and drove home to the house that was finally starting to feel like mine again. The electrical work was complete, the locks were changed, and the future was wide open. For the first time in years, I was looking forward to tomorrow. The system reset was complete.